All right, so we are on today 142. The quote for today says, "Associate yourself with people of good quality, for it is better to be alone than in bad company." Okay, so this one sounds like me. Describe the company you keep or your inner circle. Do you have a problem being alone? And if so, how does that negatively affect your life? Okay, so if you're following along, think about how you might respond to this. And let's see what I wrote. Okay, so I said, I'm okay with being alone. I totally am. I have been like that my whole life. Like, I was the type of kid that could just like go off and play on my own, and I was totally fine with that. And I said, for the most part, I prefer it, but I've realized that once I'm isolated for a period of time, I do start to crave connection with people. I said, strangely, I feel like it's typically connections with strangers that I crave, but not like any sort of intimate connection. I guess it's more like just being around where other people are, like going shopping alone. And yeah, thinking back, like whenever I was younger, sometimes I would get like that anxious feeling of like, well, I want to do something. I want to be kind of social, but I don't really want to be like social. And so, like, unfortunately, the only way to do that, or one of the few ways to do that, is like to go shopping. And so I did have a time where I was, specifically when I first started college, I went to college near my hometown. So I still lived with my parents, so I didn't have rent or anything. And I also started working, so I had my own money. I didn't have like a lot of bills or anything. And so I had a little bit, that was the first time I had a little bit of like expendable income. And so I would just like go to the store, not buy like expensive things, but you know, just spend some time by myself, walking around the store, kind of like being around in public, but not like interacting with the public, I guess it seems. So let's see. I said, in that case, I'm out and around other people without really associating with them. And then I said, more recently, social media has filled that void. And yeah, and I think especially as social media has gotten like a little bit more personal to some extent. Like, I was really late to the game in most social media. Like, MySpace came about whenever I was like, I think in high school, but nobody really used it that much, I don't think, or I didn't really use it that much. And then Facebook became a thing when I was early in college. And again, Facebook to me wasn't really about like socializing with people. It was about just almost like showing off who you were. Like, you would post pictures, and it was like a little bit about engaging with your friends, you know, you'd post pictures and tag people in it, and stuff like that. But it wasn't really so much like it is now. And basically, I just used it as like more or less a photo dump. There wasn't as much of that like sharing your opinions on political things or anything really. It was more just like posting parts of your life. And I basically just used it as like a photo album. But then I was really late to the game getting on Instagram. And Instagram wasn't really super like interactive. You weren't really seeing people's lives, I think, at the beginning. But by the time that I got onto it, like, you had stories and everything. And so I felt like I thought it was interesting because like if you just looked at people's pages, like their pages were very curated, you know. But then if you followed some people on their stories, you were seeing more of their personalities and their kind of like real life a little bit. And so I just, especially like during the pandemic, like when the pandemic hit, you know, I was following people and just, you know, you can kind of keep up a little bit with what was going on with them without having to necessarily associate with them. And then somewhat on YouTube too. I've been watching YouTube for a while, And then TikTok is just like a whole other level. You know, I was late to the game using TikTok, and then once I started using it, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so different than, you know, what you see on Facebook or Instagram. Really, like, people just aren't wearing makeup, and they're, you know, just, but now it seems like it's shifting a little bit. So I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe this is just me not understanding, because I don't have like a makeup routine, or I don't have like a skincare routine or anything like that. I don't understand why there's so many people that they post videos of them like doing their skincare routine. Maybe that's because they're like, it's relatable to other people doing it, but like I think it's a little bit weird that like half the videos I come across are people, men and women, like, you know, washing their face and putting their lotion on their face or doing their makeup. Like, I don't know. I still listen to their stories. I think their stories are interesting. I just think it's kind of weird that like half of them are doing that in their videos. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So yeah, I like to be social at a distance. I do like to see like what I am very curious about other people's lives. Like whenever I was younger was when the first what do you call it, like reality TV started. And even from a young age, like I loved Real World. Like I thought Real World was so interesting to just, it wasn't, you know, at the time I felt like it wasn't scripted. And I really think like the first seasons of like Real World, and then there was another show called Road Rules, and that one didn't feel like super scripted or anything. And I loved it. Like I thought it was so interesting, you know, to see these people like interacting in real life. But now it's all fake. Like now I can't even watch reality TV, because it's just, you can tell that they've set up all these scripted things and whatever. But yeah, anyways, I think that's why I like to watch creators on YouTube, especially smaller creators, because I think especially when people are smaller, they're more honest and they're not making content for views or, you know, whatever. It's just more realistic. But then even on TikTok, I've seen as some people get like bigger, you can kind of tell that they're catering their content towards like what's gonna get them the most views and things like that. But yeah, I just like people who are real. And I'm interested to see like what really other people's lives are like and what they think, but without actually totally interacting with them, I guess, like on a personal level. But anyway, yeah, so I said social media has filled that void. I said the times I feel more, and I put in quotation, social, I start to post more and interact a little bit more with people online. Yeah, I noticed this whenever I was posting more on Instagram. There, I would go through cycles to where I would feel more social and I would start posting more and like wanting to interact. And by interact, I mean just like liking people's stuff, or maybe like leaving a comment on their story or something like that. I said then whenever I feel like retreating, I pull back and I'll stop posting or stop interacting. And I said this method is less stressful to me than making like real friends, since there's more pressure to consistently engage with people in real life. So it's hard. I think it would be easier for me now because I understand myself a little bit better. But in the past, it was hard for me. It was stressful for me to maintain friendships because I would feel like a terrible person if, you know, I had agreed to go out with people and then I didn't go out. And then, so most of the time I would force myself to go out, and sometimes it would be fine, but other times I would just feel like so stressed and feel like I wasn't being a good friend for not like responding back and things like that. But, with social media and just keeping like loose interactions with people, it's like a little bit less stressful for me. And I I knew I was gonna forget this word. I knew I should have written the word down, but object, is it object permanence? I just came across this on TikTok yesterday. And so apparently this is another reason where I do think I probably have ADHD, if this is something that is really common with people with ADHD, is so they say object permanence is like whenever like, it's like most people talk about it with like objects, inanimate objects, like how ADHD people can like lose things so easily, not remember where things are, or like specifically if you don't see it, if it's not visible, then you just kind of forget it exists. Like, you know, things exist, but like this example someone used of like, you know, you can put something in the microwave to heat up, and if you don't hear like the microwave beeping, then you can just completely forget that it's even in there because the microwave door is closed, you don't see it, and it's very easy to forget it exists. Whereas if you had something like sitting out on the counter and you walked by it, you would see it and be like, oh yeah, I was doing that. And yeah, I would totally, a million times would forget things were in the microwave if my microwave didn't like continually beep like every 30 seconds after something's done. But people have started talking about it like it's not just with like inanimate objects. A lot of people with ADHD do that with people, and that's why people with ADHD like won't respond back sometimes to text messages. Like if you miss the text message popping up on your phone, you don't remember to check your text messages, or like in some cases I will see the text message pop up on my phone, but I can't respond to it right away, and then I'll just totally forget to respond to it. And then they even talk about it with like people in your life, like family members or friends. Like if you're not around them, if you don't like visibly see them, then you just kind of forget they exist. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but this is something that I always thought was kind of weird, seeing how other people that like I've been on trips with and stuff are with their families. So like there was one summer that I was like out of the country for like 9 months out of the year. Or 1 year I was out of the country for like 9 months out of the year. I spent like a couple of weeks in Costa Rica. I spent like almost a month in Mozambique. I spent like a month in Slovakia. And then I spent like a month just backpacking through Europe. And then I spent 4 months in Belgium. I only spoke to my family I think maybe twice on those trips. On the shorter trips, I don't think I spoke to them at all. On the longer trip, my sister initiated like a Skype call on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that was the only interaction I had with my family. And I'm pretty sure my mom has ADHD too, because I think she does the same thing. Because there's been times when I was younger and I traveled and we didn't communicate like the whole time I was traveling. So it was like I was traveling, I was, you know, engaged with all the stuff that I was doing there. And I just didn't think to like contact my family. And I think it was the same thing for her. Like I was gone, I was out of sight, out of mind. So she didn't really think to like contact me. And so there's just like no contact going on. My grandma was one that would like reach out quite a bit. Not really when I was traveling though, but like whenever I was back home and I was off in college, like my mom like hardly ever, you know, would reach out to me. But my grandma would be one that would call me consistently, and my sister would reach out to me more. But yeah, and I feel bad because I feel like, am I a bad person? Because I just don't think about like whenever, like I'm just like, I tend to be focused on like whatever I'm focused on at the time. And I think that's also what I'm about to say here. Pressure for life. I said, aside from basic acquaintances, I tend to only align myself with one person at a time. And so that's usually like the one person that is like there, you know, most of the time. And I said, this has typically been a male. and was currently the person that I was dating right now. It's my roommate, you know, clearly, because I talk about him a lot. Like, he's the one person that's here. He's living with me, you know, so I'm around him all the time. And so he's that one person. And I realized I've always been that way. I've always had like one friend that I was like the closest to, that we would hang out with the most. And it was almost always like, I don't have friends that I've kept over different situations of my life. It's like whatever situation that I'm in, the people that I'm close to. So like every college program that I've had, I may have like one person that I hang out with that's in that program because we're around each other. We see each other in class every day. So I think about them because I'm seeing them every day. Or like a work situation where I'm working with the person, I'm seeing them every day. But then it's like when I move on to another job, or when school ends, this is gonna sound bad to say, but it's almost like they don't really exist anymore. Like, I know they exist, but like in my mind, I'm not just like thinking it, like they're not around, so I'm not like really thinking about them. And it's been the same thing. Like I've thought about this with like ex-boyfriends even. Like, I could spend every day with them, you know, for years. And then whenever we break up and they're gone, it's just, it's done. Like, I'm not one of those people that like really dwells on like past relationships, because it's like once they're out of my life, they're like out of my life. And so I don't really think about it. I don't dwell on it. And I guess that's not like some people. Other people aren't really like that. But yeah, and I feel bad. Like, I'm sure some of the guys that I've dated are probably like, dang, she just totally dropped me and I'm dead to her. And it's not that I like hate them. Like, most of my breakups have not been on bad terms, but it's just, I move on very quickly, I guess. And if you're not like right there, then it's just not, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I'm like that, but anyway, let's see. I said, now that my thoughts and perspectives on relationships are evolving. Okay, so I talked about how it was normally like one person at a time. It was normally male. I said I could see this being a female at some point, or even holding second friendships as long as I'm communicating. So yeah, I don't know if that's the case though. Like, now that I've learned about this object permanence, or whatever the term is for it, because I thought it was just like, I think when I was writing here, I was thinking that the reason I did that was for the anxiety of like feeling like a bad person if I don't text back or whatever. And so I was thinking that like, now that I understand the fact that like that's kind of how I am, like I have these more social moments and then these moments where I pull away, that as long as I meet friends, that I like communicate that with them up front, so they're not like, they don't get upset at me for like being social and then pulling back, you know, or whatever. Like, if I could meet people that understood that. But now I'm just wondering, like, if someone's just away from me, I don't know if I can like just keep them on my mind. I did see one girl that said one thing that she had done was on her phone, she would put pictures, she would like pin her friends or close family like at the top of her like phone messages or whatever, and she would put a picture there, so like she would see their photo, you know, whenever she would open like her messages or whatever, and that would like remind her of the person because it would be a photo of them there. So I don't know, maybe there's something I could do like that, like if I have friends or people that I get close to, like, I don't know, put photos of them around. But like, I don't know. But for right now, like I'm not looking to make a bunch of friendships or whatever, because I'm so focused on school. But yeah, I don't have like a big inner circle. And it is just kind of like more in the present moment of who's around me or whatever. But anyway, this is a long one, but I think it's just because I came across that yesterday and it just kind of blew my mind. And it did make me feel a little bit better that like I'm not the only one that this happens to. But now I'm just wondering, I'm like, is that a bad thing? Is that something that I need to work on, you know? Like, is it something that people with ADHD need to work on to get better at to maintain friendships? Or is it something that people with ADHD can explain to other people and get them to understand that that's how they are, so they won't be feeling offended, you know, by not getting constant text? Because I know I've seen it on both sides. I've seen some people like post memes about how like I can just forget to text somebody back, haha, that's just how I am, you know. I just forget. And then there's people on the other side that are like, I was always there for this person, I was always the first one to reach out. And they're saying like, cut toxic people out of your life. If they're not reaching out to you, then they're toxic, and cut them out. And I'm like, I think there's an in between. I think that these people aren't necessarily toxic. They're not trying to use you. They don't hate you, they don't dislike you. It's just their brains are different and they don't think about that way. But like, should we change and try to be more, you know, try to remember to reach out more and try to be more interactive? So I don't know. Right now I'm fine with just having my one person, but that may not end up being like a good thing in the long run. But I don't know. Anyway, that's what I have for that. I will be back tomorrow with day 143.